Hi, this is Paul Kreutz and welcome to Halloween DIY and How To. In this edition, I am going to show you how to build this updated 2.0 version of the Trick Trunk. Just like its predecessor, this prop can be lighthearted or macabre, depending on how you create it. However, this version is a standalone prop, meaning that it has its own individual motor. This allows it to be plugged in and placed anywhere you want, making it a great addition to your Halloween haunt or display. How is it done? Well, I'm going to show you how, so let's get started. Before I list any additional items that you will need to create this version, please refer to the original Trick Trunk video on what type of trunk that you will need and how to prepare the trunk itself. You can find that video's link in the description of this video. Follow that video all the way through till around 12 minutes 30 seconds into it, where I talk about how to offset the weight of the trunk's lid. Here is where these two props start to differ. So from this point on, the items that you will need to motorize this prop are one deer motor with a 1 3/4 inch rotating arm. The arm has a 1 1/8 inch offset. Please refer to the description of this video for more information on that motor. Metal mailbox holder hardware. The packet comes with 4 L brackets. You will need 2 of them. Super glue, or a glue specifically made for metal. 1 1/2 to 3/4 inch long, large-headed wood screw. It must fit through the slot in the mailbox L bracket. 2 springs. These particular type of springs work perfectly. 8 inches of coat hanger wire. 2 small 5/8 to 3/4 inch S-hooks. 2 2-inch long finish or trim screws. They are smaller in diameter than deck or grabber screws and come with their own custom driver bit. 2 small drill bits. I'll talk about what size they need to be later. And a small section of 1/4 inch drip irrigation polytubing. If your trunk lid is larger and heavier, or if the content that it is lifting is heavy, you may also need 2 additional springs and 2 1-inch by 1/2 inch screw eyes. To start, prep 2 L brackets by cutting off the long ends at the 3rd hole. Cutting through the metal at the location of a hole will make it easier when using pliers and crimps. These 2 L-shaped brackets need to be made more rigid, so carefully glue them together using super glue or a suitable glue for metal. Place the short angled ends into one another, then firmly clamp the 2 L brackets together, lining up their holes as best as you can. The holes will be slightly offset. So because of this, and once the glue has dried on the L bracket, carefully drill out that first hole with a drill bit of the same diameter. Make sure that you use a drill bit that is made for metal. Since eventually a control rod will be placed here, smooth off any rough edges in and around the hole with a rasp. Let's turn our attention to prepping the deer motor. Remove the screws from these 2 areas. This will be the location of the mounting screws that will connect the motor to the back of the trunk. Also remove the rotation arm by loosening its screw. Drill out the hole on the end of the rotation arm using a drill bit that is slightly larger than the diameter of the 8-inch long piece of coat hanger wire. When done, that wire, when inserted into the hole, should move and rotate freely. Use that same drill bit at the 2 mounting screw locations on the motor. This will enlarge those 2 holes to help prevent the trim screws from cracking the plastic when inserted. Next, we will attach the coat hanger wire to the rotation arm, turning the wire into a control rod. Using pliers, prep the wire by bending between 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch on one end of the wire up at a 90-degree angle. From the back of the arm, insert the long end of the wire into it. The short, bent end needs to be pointing up along with the arm and tight up against its back, like this. Then make a mark on the wire 1 1/2 inches from the back of the arm. At this mark, bend the long end of the wire up at a 90-degree angle. Both ends should be parallel to each other. Measure up 5 inches from the last bend and bend the remainder of the wire at a 90-degree angle and parallel to what would be the face of the motor. When done, it should look like this. Before reattaching the arm to the motor, let's prep the back of the trunk. Make a center mark on the bottom back of the trunk. Hold the motor up to the bottom of the trunk with the rotation shaft lined up with the center mark. Make marks to the left and right where the mounting holes are on the motor. Then make 2 additional marks to the right and left from those marks about 1 inch to 1 3/4 inches away. All of these marks should be about 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge of the trunk. Hold the short end of the reinforced L bracket with the 90-degree bent side facing down to the middle of the flat panel of the lid and directly above the seam where the trunk's 2 halves meet. Make a mark at that slot. Pre-drill all of these marks with a very small drill bit, creating pilot holes. This will help to prevent the wood from cracking. Using the short wood screw, screw the L bracket into its location on the lid's flat panel. Next, screw the arm back onto the motor with the arm facing up. Double check that the wire control rod rotates freely. Place a trim screw into the loop of one of the S-hooks. Using a pliers, crimp the loop of the S-hook around the trim screw's neck, just until the head will not pull through. Repeat this with the other screw and S-hook. Then partially screw each screw into the motor's mounting holes. We can now attach the motor to the back of the trunk, but as you see, the motor will extend past the bottom of the trunk. Because of this, part of this prop's setup is that the trunk will need to be on a raised platform, such as prop books, a small table, or even a pedestal. This way the motor can hang over the back edge. To replicate this, I have placed the trunk on a short pedestal. With the motor facing out, place the end of the control rod through the first hole on the L bracket, then pass the rod's first bend. Hold the motor over the pre-drilled holes for the mounting screws and slowly screw them into the trunk. Hold the S-hooks so that the empty loops are facing upwards. Do not over-tighten the screws. This could crack the plastic on the motor. At this point, you can also screw the screw eyes into their pilot holes as well. However, these are optional and are only needed if your lid is extra heavy. Next, place the springs into the hole on the end of the L bracket and then down to their corresponding S-hook loops. The springs should be strong enough to help offset the weight of the trunk's lid, making it easier for the motor to open it, but not so strong that they keep the lid from closing. If at some point during the end of your build you find that the trunk lid has become too heavy, 1 or 2 additional springs may be added. Hook those in the same hole on the L bracket, but then down to the screw eyes. This will prevent too much upward stress on the mounting screws. Turn on the motor to check that everything is operating correctly. Here are some fine-tuning tips. There is a limit to how far the lid will open. That is because the motion of the L bracket is an arc, while the control rod's motion is straight up and down. At a certain point of opening the lid, these two will bind and fight each other, putting stress on the motor. Here's how you can check just how far you can open the lid without this happening, and without having to rebend the control rod to a shorter length. Cut 3 pieces of the 1/4 inch poly tubing at 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 of an inch long. Then cut each one lengthwise. One by one, starting with the shortest piece, slip it over the top portion of the controlling rod and on top of the L bracket. Turn on the motor and individually test each length. I found that the maximum length that I could use of the poly tubing was 3/4 of an inch before the control rod starts to flex a bit. Doing this opened the trunk lid for the eyes to work just the same as with the overhead animator. To keep the control rod's bent end from moving towards the motor, place a 3/4 inch piece of the poly tubing in the same way over the control rod at this location. And one additional note. Once the motor assembly is complete, you have a locked system, meaning that you are no longer able to freely open and close the lid. To do that, you must remove the rotating arm from the motor by loosening its screw. Only then can you freely open and close the trunk's lid in order to add and adjust its content. Speaking of, here are just a few examples of the different tilt boards that can be used inside the trunk. All of them operate on the same principle, just with different spooky items attached, and all towards the front of each of their masonry boards. Please refer to the original trick trunk video for more detailed information on how these tilt boards work. In that video, I go over not only their size and what material they are made of, but also how to attach and adjust the spooky items to them. This is very important since they must work in harmony with the trunk's lid as it opens and closes. Also make sure that your items not only fit inside the trunk, but are also very lightweight. Look for things made of styrofoam, plastic, or even a cheap Halloween mask like this one. It was enhanced with latex caulking, and then I added rubber teeth and eyes before carefully painting it. Attach your items to the masonry tilt boards using either metal hanging tape, baling wire, or even pipe cleaners twisted around a piece of wire. Just make sure that what you use is not only strong enough to hold your object in place, but also flexible enough to easily bend, allowing you to make adjustments to it. Remember, these items will need to clear the opening and closing of the lid as simultaneously the board tilts them forward and back. So be ready to make a lot of slight adjustments to them until you get just the right positioning. A slightly different option is to use battery-powered animated lighting to give the interior of your trunk a mysterious glow. Instead of a masonite board, use a mirrored finish piece of sheet metal to amplify your lighting. Then hang a battery-powered, motion-sensored shaker from inside the lid to finish off that look. It's now time to add your spooky items to the inside of your trick trunk and get ready to haunt.